All right. Well, we are a few minutes late. I apologize. We ate at Bozo's, and so, yeah, it was busy, and so we got here a little late. So I apologize for that. But if I fall asleep and fall over while we're talking, just know because that was some really good food. So welcome all of you. For those that I haven't met, we're here. This is the Singing River Health System Employees Retirement Plan and Trust, the pension plan. This is the annual meeting. All the notes, everything that we share when we're done with this is all going to be on the website. If you're not familiar with a website, it's a website that we created for you to keep up with all the latest news and all the latest information. And you'll find that at www. Is it on there? Oh. Well, just let me do my thing. So, big long word, www dot, and then you spell out the words, Singing River Retirement. All one word, singingriverretirement.com. And you'll have all the latest, everything that we know will be there for you. So, to introduce ourselves today, Tracy Christian is your special fiduciary. She oversees the management of the entire pension plan. I'm Troy Miller. I do the administration of the plan. So if you have questions about your benefits or questions about the plan, you contact me. And then also today with us, a special guest, we have Brian Parrott. He is the Senior Vice President of FCI Advisors. He manages our investments for the plan. And so we all know it's been a rocky year for investments. And so Brian wanted to come this year to just be able to be here with you and answer any questions that you might have. This is our annual health checkup time. Just like when you got to go to the doctor for a health checkup, we're here to do a health checkup on the pension plan. Now, we actually not only prepare this meeting for you every year, but when it comes to the liabilities of the plan, and we'll explain more of that as we go, we actually do that report every 6 months. And so you can get a semi-annual report of that on the web page every 6 months. You'll have a encapsulation of the liabilities of the plan. The assets of the plan, the investments of the plan, we actually look at those every month with Brian. And so we make that report available to you also. New report is posted every month on that website. This is our direct numbers. A lot of times if you call and you go through our regular switchboard, you have to dial our extensions. But if you want to get a hold of Tracy or I, this will actually take you straight to our phones without having to go through the switchboard operator or to dial the extension. So we just like to do kind of a quick reminder of the difference between a defined benefits plan and a defined contributions plan. A pension plan, the Singing River Health System pension plan, is and was a defined benefits plan. What that means is that investments are made, but based upon pay and time worked and so forth, there's a specific benefit that is paid out of the plan, and so it's the benefit that is defined. Unlike a 403B or a 401k, these types of plans are defined contribution plans. What that basically means is you put all your money in, however you put it in. Sometimes you put it in directly out of your check. Your employer may match some of that, but it all goes into an account that's just in your name. And whatever that money does over the years while it's in the stock market or wherever it's invested, when it comes time for you to draw on that for retirement, that's your account and you get whatever money is in there, okay? Paid out to you in whatever is beneficial for you personally. So in a company like the hospital, everybody has their own little account, and their money goes in, it grows, and their money comes out. But in a defined benefits plan, it's different. Defined benefits plan, everybody's money goes into the same pot. You don't have a specific account, you just have a vested interest in that amount of money. Once you've been in, with Singing River, it was for 10 years. Once you had been in the plan for 10 years, then you had a vested interest. But everybody's money went into the same investment pool, And then what happens when each individual reaches retirement age, out of that pool, each individual receives the defined benefit that was defined for them based upon their rate of pay, their years of service, and so forth. So everybody's money is in the same. So sometimes people call me and they say, well, how much money do I have in my account? Well, you don't have an account. You're part of a defined benefits plan, and it's the same account for everybody, but you do have a benefit, and that's what is important to each of you, is what is my benefit out of the plan. That's what we try to help you with. So what we try to do is we try to keep a balance between the assets and the liabilities of that plan. All your money goes into that pot, and then we have to calculate when each of you individually retires, are we going to have enough money in the pot to pay everybody the defined benefit that's been promised to them. And so what we have, only two things in this plan now make up that pot for us. It used to be everybody was contributing money, but we all know that in 2014 the plan became frozen. So no more employee money is going into it. So what we have in the yellow, you'll see, we have all the funds that we already had to start with. Those are invested. We have future settlement payments that are still being made by the hospital on a regular basis. They've not missed those payments. They've been on time with those payments every time, but those are the only thing that's being added to the pot of money. So we've got a pot of money over here. The money that was in it in 2014 is the money we had, and now we have the only new money coming in is the money that is from the settlement payments. Does that make sense? Okay. So what we have right now, when we use the term liabilities, basically the liabilities of this plan is all the people who need to be paid out of it, okay? And so right now, in this plan, the biggest portion that we have is those of you, and I think probably all of you are in pay status now. Is that right? So this plan currently has $170.6 million in liabilities. 819 people, including yourselves, are currently in pay status, okay? We have 329, the green area, we have 329 employees who are still working for the hospital and will also eventually have a benefit from this plan. Then we have in the kind of orangish part there, the yellow part, we have 186 people who are no longer working for the hospital, but when they left the hospital, they were vested in the plan, and so they too will be eligible for a retirement benefit whenever they reach retirement age. And then we still have 434 people who no longer work for the hospital. They were not vested in the plan. However, money was withheld from their paychecks, and it's still being held in the plan. And while they worked for the hospital, it earned a certain amount of interest. It's not earning interest any longer because they're no longer working there. But they are due that money back. That is their money. And we have on the website a list of all those people. And every time I have a chance to talk to somebody, any one of you, I say, take a look at the list. If you see a friend or somebody on there that you know, give them a call, tell them to call us, because they have money sitting in the pension plan that belongs to them, and we want to get that money to them.
How is that list? Yeah, how do you find that list again?
That list is on that website, the SingingRiverRetirement.com website. There's a complete list there.
What's the title of it?
There's actually a big red button on there that says, do you know any of
Yeah. We put it in big red heading that said, do you know any of these people? And when you click on it, boom, that list will appear. So, yeah, you will definitely see it. Yes, ma'am.
Is that updated as those people? Because when it first came out, I knew a lot of people that I contacted, so when they draw it out, does their name come off the list? Is it worth looking?
Well, it hasn't been updated lately. In you've only found 5 additional people.
No, I mean,
But
on
no,
the original list,
it probably needs to be updated again. That's a good point.
for the ones that.
Yeah, I'll make sure that we did pull off those and did come forward. So, thank you, that's a good point.
Yes, ma'am?
How much money are we talking about in those 434 people?
All told, those 434 people add up to a little over $1 million.
Yeah.
So we're holding on to a little over $1 million that
That belongs to them.
belongs to other people.
Is there going to be like a statute of limitation or anything? Or
No.
if they get like a notice, like they would in anything else?
Yeah,
It's supposed to?
we've sent out mailings to their last known address. We've tried really hard to find them. Right now, this is all we're doing. We have them posted on the website. At some point, I may talk to the judge about, trying some other sort of effort. I don't know.
We spent almost 2 years trying to find them, and as a last-ditch effort, we put this list together. We even had to get permission from the judge to make it public, but yeah, for privacy reasons. But we said we're running out of options to find people. So
It seems like there would be, you've exhausted all your.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Legally, there should be something.
But until they come forward, we're holding on to that money, we're investing that money, and all of you are benefiting from the investment earnings on that money. And so, while I'm doing everything I can to find them, I won't turn it over to the state or the IRS because
Right.
we'll just sit there and hold it for them.
But now in the interim, will they only be able to collect when that froze?
Correct.
They won't be able to.
yeah, it's not earning any more interest for them. Yeah, once they stopped working for the hospital, their interest stopped. So, so what you may or may not be familiar with is what we call a percentage of fundedness. What we're talking about when we talk about a percentage of fundedness, remember that there's people in this plan who won't be paid for another 30, 40, or 50 years down the road. This plan has to stay viable for 50 plus years.
I'll forgive if I don't ask it now.
Uh-huh.
How young is the youngest person that's going to be eligible for their benefits? Because we keep saying 30.
I don't know for sure, but I know
Would have been very young.
there's people who were, yeah, I was going to say I know there's people in the plan who were born in the 70s. So, okay, all right, go ahead and look that up. So in this percentage of fundedness, we're required, oops, what do we do here? Oh, there we go, okay. We have to make projections of investment returns and liabilities and these sorts of things. And the court has required that this plan stay within what we consider in the industry to be a very narrow corridor of fundedness. It has to stay between 90 and 110% fundedness. No. What's that? No. Let me kind of explain. Yeah, well, let me explain what we're doing. So, if we have a fund that is 100% funded, then what that means is, I'll stay over here in front of the camera. Sorry about that. I'm a walker when I talk. So what that means is that based upon our projection of people to be paid and our projection of the amount of money we have and the investment returns, we feel comfortable in saying that we've got all the money we need today to pay the very last person in this plan when the very last person gets paid, okay? So 100% is perfect. If every year we could come back and tell you we were 100% funded, that would mean everything would just be perfect and all investments would be on track and everything would be great. But we all know that stock markets fluctuate, investments fluctuate. And so last year when we were here at this time, we were 101% funded. We had slightly more assets than our projected liabilities. We had slightly more projected, or current assets for our projected liabilities. But because of a downturn in the market, today, at the end of September this year, and that's what this slide is for, we're at 91.9% fundedness. Now, we know it's been a bad year. Brian's going to talk a little bit more about this if you've got some questions about it. We're not really worried or concerned because we're expecting in the next year or two for those investments to turn around and come back, fundedness corridor to close. In fact, in just this past month, we have to end this report on September 30th. This is the numbers as of September 30th. But even over the month of October, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, we've seen a slight increase. And so we're probably sitting now about 92.1 or 92.2, something like that. So we're seeing the turnaround, but when we come and report to you, we always want to be very open and honest about precisely where we're at and everything that's happening with the plan. And so right now, we have $156.7 million in projected assets and $170.6 million in projected liabilities. And again, when I say projected, I'm talking years down the road. So we have years to recover, but as of September 30th of this year, we're sitting at 91.9%. It's still within the corridor that the judge has required of us. And so that's good news, but that's just keeping you informed of where the plan is as of the last business day of the year. Okay? Any questions about any of that stuff? So this is the report. I'm going to let Tracy come up at this point because she's the one who wrote this report. This report is available in its entirety on the website. So don't worry about not being able to read this. She's just going to touch some highlights for you. Yeah, exactly. But if you want to read it word for word, this report has already been posted to the website. There you go.
Okay, I just want to talk a little bit more about what Troy was just talking about with the funded status and the corridor. The reason for the corridor is because, as everybody knows, back in May of 2018, when I came on board and we started looking at the projected assets and the projected liabilities, we had to make adjustments to the benefits. And we had to reduce benefits in order to balance out our assets and liabilities. We simply didn't have enough money to fund the benefits that were currently in pay status and the future benefits that have been promised. There just wasn't enough money. We had the money we had, and we had settlement payments that we knew we were going to get, but there was no additional money coming into this plan. That we have what we have, and we have no other source of money to go into this plan. So the only thing we can do if we get too far out of line, either overfunded or underfunded, is to adjust our benefits accordingly. And so that's why the judge ordered, at my recommendation, that we set this corridor and we measure it officially every year. In April, we do kind of an unofficial measurement, just kind of see where we are on the liabilities. But we want to stay within that 90 to 110% corridor so that we don't get too far either direction. I don't want to get so underfunded that I have to come back and recommend to the judge, we need to cut another 25% because now we're down, to 75% funded. I don't want to do that. I also don't want to get to the point where we are 120% funded and we have more money than we need and we're not giving it to you. So that's what that corridor is for. It's so that the plan doesn't get too overfunded, nor does it get too underfunded. And if we fall outside of that corridor, what the judge has said is basically, we're going to talk. and he would look to me to make a recommendation. And so there was a time back when COVID first hit and we saw a really sharp, fast market downturn. We dropped below 90% for a brief time with that market turn down. And I had to report that to the judge. And he immediately, wanted more information about it and what's happening. And I said, yes, we did drop below 90%, but I'm not recommending that we cut benefits because I'm expecting to see the markets turn around. And the same thing is true with this valuation. September 30th was just a really lousy time to measure our assets. September was just it was a bad month. It was a bad quarter. But that's our measurement date. And so we're reporting in it at just under 92%. But the truth is, sitting here today, we're probably back up to more like 93, 94. And I expect the markets to rebound. So, but I want you to understand what that corridor means and why it's so important to us. It's really important to keep an eye on how close we are. But to be honest with you, I don't ever like to see us lose money on our investments. But truth be told, our investments performed better than any other plan I personally work on that has an October 1 valuation date. We beat other plans by almost 4 percentage points of performance. So I was very, very pleased. Brian and I work very closely together. We look at those reports together once a month, but quite often we talk even more than once a month about changes that we want to make and ways to, we always try to reduce our investment expenses and still keep the performance up to where we want it. And even though it was a lousy year for investments, I'll be honest with you, I was pleased with the performance that we were not down nearly as much as some other funds were. So I'm very pleased about that. And this report, again, is our official valuation report that goes to the court. This report is written, it's published by my firm, but it's signed by another actuary. I don't sign this report because I'm the special fiduciary, and so I have another actuary that works for this firm that signs off on that report. Last year, we had a completely independent actuarial firm come in and audit the work that we were doing to make sure that if they had any suggestions or ways that they thought we could calculate things better. And they did. They made some really good suggestions. There were some things that I had been kind of wondering about, but I just kind of gave it to them to see if they would come to the same conclusions I did. And they had some good recommendations that we've incorporated. So again, this is just our once a year snapshot valuation that goes to the court. Those yellow highlighted lines, again, show us at just under 92%, but I expect to see that come up over this year. I don't want to walk through this entire report. This report is about 30 pages long, so I won't spend a lot of time walking through the details. But it is posted on the website if you want to go and look at it. The presentation that Troy gave is kind of the bottom line that we want to give to you. But this report kind of has every detail you could want about those numbers. And so if you look through that and you have questions, by all means, let us know. This page, again, I'm not sure if you can see the numbers there, but if you pull it down off the website, you can kind of see it. But the main thing to know here is, again, we don't have any other source of money. We have our funds invested and we have settlement payments, and that's it. And so because we are sitting as of this date, we were sitting at 92% funded. 92% is less than 100. And what that means is that we have more liabilities than we have money. We need more than we have in order to pay all of the benefits in the plan. Now we have some time. We've got 30, 40, 50 plus years. I did look up the answer to your question. Our youngest active participant still working at the hospital is between 30 and 34. We've got 4 folks between 30 and 34. Those are our youngest folks. So within 30 years, we're going to have everybody in pay status. But what this projection shows is that because as of this date, we're short. We're not at 100%. We're at 92%. And so if we only earn our 6% assumed rate of return for the next 30 years, we will run out of money. Now, I don't expect that to happen. And that's why that corridor becomes so important. What I expect to see happen is I expect to see market recovery. I expect our assets to go up and down. But that's why that corridor is so important, is that we stay within that so that if we start to get underfunded, we will come in and make an adjustment, or if we get overfunded, we will make an adjustment to benefits. But we will always keep within that corridor so that we don't completely run out of money before everyone has been paid.
I can understand him, I don't know anything about all, what y'all do. When we took the 25% reduction, I can understand that because that's the same every month. But how do you figure that 13th check that we lost also? How is that?
Right. So when we cut benefits, we eliminated the 13th check and we cut monthly benefits by 25%. And the way that 13th check was calculated was based on the number of years you'd been in retirement. And again, all of that information goes into our computer system. And what our system does is whatever the benefits are that are being offered, all of those provisions go into the system, and then assumptions are made. What is the probability that each individual payment is going to be made and for how long? And so the computer system looks at each individual participant. It looks at the 819 folks in pay status. How long do we think each one of those people is going to live, and how many payments are going to be made? And we discount every single one of those back. And for our active folks that are still working, when do we think they're going to retire? We project that out. What's the probability that they might retire early? What's the probability that they might retire later? A couple valuations ago, we changed the retirement assumptions because folks were working longer. So we started to assume that. They're not going to start as soon as we thought they might. And so, but all of those things go in, including the calculation of a 13th check, to calculate an individual liability for each person. Yes, ma'am. No, the 13th check was based on, the 13th check calculation was based on how long you'd been in pay status. Whether or not to make the 13th check may have had some conditions attached to it. But we just assumed that the 13th, because it had been made every year for so many years, we assumed it would continue to be made. But then eliminating it completely brought our liabilities down into balance. Well, the 13th check's been eliminated, so.
Yeah, I think, yeah, let me see if this will help you. So by eliminating the 13th check, that's what helped bring us into the corridor of the 90%. Had we still been paying the 13th check, we would have been way below that 90% corridor.
Right. So if we had wanted to continue making 13th checks, we would have had to cut monthly benefits by 35%, say, instead of 25%. And so rather than cut everybody's monthly checks 35%, we cut them 25% and eliminated the 13th check. It was just a way to.
And one thing you may not know is that 25% cut was made across the board for everybody. So anybody who's not yet in pay status, when we calculate their benefit, we show the original amount, but then we subtract 25% off of it, right? Because even new people who are coming into pay status, still, the only fair way to do it was not to just punish people that were already in pay status, but we also had to do that for everybody that would be in the plan.
Was it part of the cost of living entered into the equation for that 13th check? Was it not a percentage?
It was a percentage based on how many years you'd been in pay status. Correct. Right. Whatever that percentage was for the year times. So yeah, that may have been what she was talking about. How the economy affected it. But by eliminating it, entirely, it simplifies the calculations to say we're not going to pay him anymore at all. And then that made us have to reduce benefits a little bit less than we would have had to otherwise. I was trying to flip here to kind of the data for, this is a breakdown, again, I know it's hard to read, but it's a breakdown of our participants in the plan. So we've got 819 folks in pay status, receiving an average annual benefit of just over $15,000 a year. So our average retiree gets about $15,000 a year. We've got our 186 vested terminated folks. They're going to end up getting a little bit less. Again, they worked for a shorter time, and then this is where I pulled the information about folks who are still working at the hospital. These are our 329 active participants, and as you can see, we've got 4 folks between the ages of 30 and 34, but everybody's got at least 10 years of service, and we've even got some folks that are over age 65. We've got 22 people working still over age 65.
If I may, so actually these people were allowed to vest after the plan froze in 14, correct?
Correct. They were still allowed to vest.
And what made that happen? I mean, how were they eligible to vest?
They,
The plan was frozen. That's the part
let me help you there.
confusing.
So they were allowed to vest because you needed to work for 10 years. Their benefit when you're vested is paid upon the amount of money that you made. But the amount of money that we figure for them cuts off at 2014. So they have to work for 10 years, but let's say they got hired in 2012. Their benefit's only going to be figured on 2 years of service, not 10 years of service. They need 10 years to get payment, but they only get paid for 2 years of service in the plan.
But
It's
you
very-
understand what I'm saying? It almost seems a little bit on the unfair side, that once the plan was frozen, people were still allowed to be able to vest when it should have stopped right there.
right, and benefit accruals stopped, but the benefit accruals stopped, but the opportunity to earn the eligibility did continue, and
Well, part of that's the rules of the plan. The rules of the plan said it was 10 years, but instead of getting 10 years of pay from the plan, they only get whatever they actually worked in the plan.
So then essentially, the only thing that froze was participation, or actually employee contributions was the only thing that froze.
employee contributions,
That's the plan was
part,
on just-
participation. Well, no, because benefits stopped being earned,
But still, the participation in the plan was eligible.
but they weren't earning any benefit.
But they were able to become eligible for.
Correct, they were able to become eligible. I understand what you're saying, and I don't have an explanation for you because I wasn't around when the freeze amendment was done.
I know we've asked that, but we never really got any answer as to, essentially, most of the people that I know, our understanding was that the plan froze. It froze.
Right.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
The judge or whatever, everybody got their, monthly whatever. But actually, that's not what happened, because people who were there, even though they weren't vested, were able to keep it.
Right. Right. No,
Where is that written? Where do you find that?
Oh, that would be in the plan document. And so the plan document that defined the terms of the plan, that had to be amended in 2014 when benefits were frozen. And so,
That's in there then.
yes, it is. It is in there. Yes, it is. And so when that plan was amended, that's how the amendment was written. Again, it was before my time, so I can't give you the whys or the wherefores of why they did it that way. But that is the way it's written, and so that is the way we administer it. Correct. Correct. That decision was made before all of the court stuff began. And the court didn't change that when the amendment that the court made was to reduce the benefits, but that's all that amendment did. They left the plan like it was, correct, and just reduced benefits to get us back to funded status. This is, again, I apologize for the small numbers. All of this is on the website if you want to look at it in more detail. This is a report that I make every year to the court and to you. I'm very cognizant and I keep a very close eye on the expenses in this plan. And when I first took over, we were spending, this plan was spending about just under almost $1.7 million in administrative expenses and investment expenses. And when I first took over, I just felt like that was way too high. We're spending too much money. And every dollar we spend in expenses is one less dollar that I have to pay participants. And so part of my goal when I took over was to cut those expenses everywhere we could. And we worked really hard the first few years to get those expenses down. And I still watch them very closely. We're just about now to the point where we're budgeting just under $1 million a year in administrative expenses and investment expenses. For a $100 million pension fund, it costs about $1 million a year to keep the lights on, is what that means. I have to pay for investment advice. I have to pay an auditor to come in and make sure that everything's being done properly in this plan. As the special fiduciary, I do get paid. The administration of the plan, insurance that has to be paid for the plan. I've got to pay the bank to write the checks. And so all of those things are just things that we have to pay for to keep the plan going.
It might be worth noting that our goal originally was to cut $500,000 in expenses.
Right. Our goal was to cut $500,000 and we cut $700,000, basically.
We did much better.
We did, yeah, we did, thank you. We cut more than we
On expenses.
Sure.
Just explain something to me.
uh-huh.
These people that have $1 million sitting out,
Uh-huh.
okay? They're not gonna have to pay any expenses out of their money when they go to take it out?
Well, so
You see what I'm talking-
yeah, so let me address that. So the expenses are, again, everything's in just one big pot of money. And so while technically no, I'm not taking anything away from them to pay expenses, they're also not earning any investment earnings on their money. So that's why I won't turn the money over to the state or any other entity to take that money, because they're going to do the same thing we're doing with it. It's going to sit in an account. Somebody's going to invest it and get the investment earnings off of it. It might as well be us. It was our money. And so that's why that money sits there waiting to be paid. And so no, I don't delete money from their funds in order to pay expenses, but they're paying the expenses because their money's still sitting there and we're keeping the investment earnings on it. So it actually benefits the plan to have that money sitting in there. It benefits all of you until those people come forward or we can somehow find them to get them paid out. Currently, no. Again, I've done everything I can think of to try to find folks. If somebody else has a great idea of how to track people down.
I guess what he's trying, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, it just seems like everything else, you get X amount of days to notify it. If not,
Right.
it just goes back. You've
Right.
lost it.
Right.
You have it.
And-
Just like if you don't pay your taxes.
Sure.
You can come in and pay your taxes. But none of the things, the people who have chosen to take their money, do they get their full amount they put in?
No, ma'am.
So they're getting some of their service charges taken out of that money?
Well, so for example, we sometimes have folks come forward who have a benefit in the plan, but they come to Troy and they say, I don't want my retirement benefit. I just want my contributions back. And we return their contributions to them. They have to understand that they're forfeiting their retirement benefit in the plan. Again, that's a gain to the plan because they're leaving money on the table. And that money that they leave behind then benefits everyone else.
How many did we lose in this past year to people who chose to take their money out? Because I know of several who are still working that actually chose to go ahead.
Yeah, there were some that did that. Let's see, here we go. We found 5 non-vested terms. We found 5 of those 400 and some folks. We had 3 people who were vested terminated who came forward and withdrew their contributions and forfeited their benefits. And then we just had 1 active participant do that in the past year. There has not been a lot of lump sum activity in the past year. Just one. Just 1 in the past year. Now, in prior years, we've had more.
Well, let's say the last 2 years.
I don't have the prior year in this report, but it would be on the website.
Well, I guess we look at the difference between the 329 still working and the number from last year that's still working. Right?
Well, except that, again, this page, this is the page in the report you would want to look at. It's page 15 of the report. It'll be in last year's report too, and it'll show, like, for example, from last year to this year, we started with 383 actives. We had 19 folks retire. We had 34 people leave employment. So again, you can see those 34 people, they move over to the right, to the other column. So I've got 34 people.
There's a laser pointer on there.
Oh, that's what I'm figuring out. So I've got 34 people here who terminated vested, who moved over to this column. So I'm still holding the liability for their benefits, because eventually they will reach retirement age and be entitled. But this is the page in the report where we keep track of that. This page is in every report.
So actually, y'all know with the people who are still working, that are young, right now, based on your actuarial figures, how much money you're going to have in the fund to pay them?
Yes, ma'am. So
And that is how much? And how many of them are there?
let's look. So on page 1 of the report, so right there in the middle of the page, actuarial liability by participant group. So still actively employed at Singing River Hospital, we've got 329 folks. If I only had to pay those 329 people, if I didn't have everybody else, if I just had them, I would need just over $25 million to pay their future benefits. Everything's discounted back to October 1 of 22. But that's how much I would need today. That's how much of our total pot of money is allocated to those active participants.
Based on their age and then their years.
Correct, based on how old they are, when we think they'll retire, how long we think they'll live after they retire. Those in pay status, that's the biggest chunk. We've got about $131 million that I need right now in order to pay everybody that's currently in pay status. Our vested terms amount to about $13 million in liability, and then we've got, again, that $1 million sitting there for our non-vested folks. So basically, we need right now, as of October 1, we needed to have $170,606,000 in order to pay everybody in projected assets. But as of this valuation date, we only have about $157 million. So again, we're 92%. We don't have quite as much as we need as of this valuation date. So as we continue to do these valuations every 6 months, we watch that very closely. If we fall outside that corridor, one direction or the other, it gets reported to the court, and we have a conversation about it, and we'll make adjustments if necessary.
So when you were slightly over the corridor, the 100.1%,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't go back, that didn't have elevated at only 1.9, you showing us now to put us in a higher bracket?
Well, so last year we were at 101.4. So last year our liabilities amounted to just under 178 million, and we had 180 million. So we had a little bit more money last year than we needed on a long-term basis. But we weren't over, 101.4. Yeah, we've got a little extra, but it's not enough to I don't want to adjust benefits every year.
Well, I was just trying to adjust them, but to show us that we had a higher, from that 81.9 you just said,
Mm-hmm.
that it would show us better in the quarter than, so, I don't know.
We're measuring it every year. And so again, knowing that we're 92% funded, what that says is we're close to our corridor. If we had fallen below 90%, I'd be sending a report to Judge Bell and saying, what do you want me to do? Right, yeah, no, we don't have a safety net. That's our issue. We don't have one. Yes, sir. Uh-huh. Absolutely.
If it got to 112%, then at that point, you talk to the court and you would probably say, let's raise everybody's benefits a little bit.
Absolutely, I would. Absolutely, I would. And absolutely. And Brian here is going to tell us how we're going to get to 112% funded.
I thought that's where you were going, but
Which is what I'm trying to say. And
Sure.
I don't mean to sound stingy.
Not at all.
These people, how many years now have they been working? I'm telling you, if I had money somewhere,
Yeah,
there needs to be something set up that if they don't claim this money by X amount of time, it can stay in the fund and quit, and we would not have to say, well, let's just in case, let's just count on it. Then we'll know. They're not gonna get it.
Well, I might be able to help you with that. I don't want to sound morbid,
You see what I'm saying?
but here's the reality. Number one, there's no law that says it has to go anywhere. So it stays in there if they don't claim it. We're not giving it to the state, we're not turning it over to the IRS. If they don't claim it, it's gonna stay there, okay? And by staying there, it adds to the investments and adds to the earnings of the plan. Eventually,
yeah. At some point, the court may make a different decision.
What I'm trying to say is then you would have, you know that was gonna.
Sure. But I mean, first of all, we're talking about just over $1 million out of $100 million.
Because you can go and have a small, case in point. I had a small savings account for mine, first grade, the bank will charge, when I went to draw it out, there was no money there.
Well,
Because
and-
they were able to charge a service fee.
Right.
Why is that any different?
And again, everything we do goes through the court. I went to Judge Bell a couple years ago and I said, I have all these people that have money coming. What do you want me to do? And I actually suggested to him that we forfeit anyone that was under $200 because and because we have a lot of those. A lot of these folks have very small amounts. And he said no. And the only people that forfeited their benefits were people who had less than $25 because it costs $25 to write a check. So if you had less than $25, we took that as a service fee and said, you're not getting anything. No, I understand. But again, we're not talking about a huge chunk of money here, and anything we do goes through the court. So in a while, I may have another recommendation for Judge Bell of something we might be able to do. But right now, we're just holding that money for folks to come forward.
just like you're.
Yes, ma'am.
Tracy, I have a question. Like, when we were under Transamerica, when we first signed up to start receiving our pension, they asked you if you wanted to include your spouse. So if you died, it would keep paying into your spouse or to your children or whatever. Did that status stay in effect when you all took over the program, or did it just?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm going to repeat your question so that it gets caught by the camera, okay? So you said that when you retired, when Transamerica was the administrator, you had the opportunity to choose joint and survivor benefits with your spouse or a certain in life benefit with another beneficiary. And your question is, do those provisions still hold today? And the answer is yes, they do. Whatever form of payment you chose at retirement, that payment and that amount still continued. Everything was cut by 25%, as we all know, but the form of payment you chose is still in effect.
Yeah, it's still 25% less. If you chose a spouse,
Correct. Correct. Whatever form of payment you chose at retirement is still in effect. I'm gonna ask Brian to come up. Oh, go ahead.
You were talking about the person, see, I'm only morbid if they die, so that money being in.
well, if they're a non-vested person in the plan, still has money, and they pass away, there's no place for that money to go now. It just stays in the plan. So there's nobody to pay it to now because they passed away.
I want to take us into the future.
Okay.
I know you don't have a crystal ball.
No, I don't.
Okay, we all know Singing River Hospital is up for sale.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If whoever buys the hospital, they decide to continue to pay the debt the way Singing River is paying it now, what if they decide to pay the $55 million?
Let's see, it's
Somewhere along there.
just about 63 million is the present value of the settlement
If
payment.
they decide to drop that whole amount into the pension plan, where will that money go? It's been floated around that it would be in a trust fund, or will it go to the pension fund itself?
That would depend on the terms of whatever the sale. They certainly could write us a check for $63 million, and I would certainly take it. And and Brian and I would continue to invest it along with all of our other assets. I wouldn't mind that at all. But they may work out the terms of the sale to where that money goes into some sort of an escrow and gets paid to us just under the current terms of the plan as they are. We may still just continue to get our annual payments just as we always have, which is also fine with me.
But what they can't do is change what the current agreement is, like what the current payment plan is.
They have
They
to.
have to maintain that.
Yes,
They might do it a different way, but they
Right.
can't, but they can't give us less than what they're already, than what the settlement payment's already.
right. So they may decide to put it into an escrow fund and just keep making the annual payments to us. They may decide to drop $63 million into an investment account of their own and just keep making their annual payments to us, and then they benefit from the earnings on those investments. Fine by me, as long as we get our annual checks. Or if they just want to give it to us in one lump sum, that would also be fine. But they can't give us less than what that has been promised. Yep.
Part of the terms of that sale will be they do inherit the liability. They are, whoever the new owner is, they're not responsible.
Correct. Whoever buys the hospital will be obligated to honor the terms of our settlement.
And also follow up with that when we're speaking about sale of the hospital. Nothing changed in the plan, right?
Correct.
Except
That's correct.
Correct.
according to the plan. If the hospital is sold, the plan gets dissolved.
No.
That's in the plan.
Yes, okay, let me address that, because, there are provisions in the plan that speak to that. When the court took over, and the court orders that have been made supersede those provisions. So if the,
There's a specific place it says, is it sold?
Yes.
The court still takes it over?
Well,
the court has taken it over, and the court order supersedes that language that you're talking about. But I appreciate you bringing that up, actually, because it has come up before.
one thing that people may not understand is the hospital has no say over this plan anymore at all, ever. Their only responsibility of this plan is to make the payment. Outside of that, they can't say what happens to it, how it's managed, they have no input on anything in this plan. It's under the direction of the court. The court, for lack of a better term, the court owns the plan now. And the court needs somebody who understands the business to run it for them, because the court doesn't run pension plans.
Right.
That's why you now have a special fiduciary. And so
But
the court has said, these are the terms, this is what's required, and if anybody acquires this hospital, they inherit that court order liability, that no action.
But it is a possibility that the judge may decide to do something different with the plan once it's sold.
I suppose he could, but he would look to me to make a recommendation, and my recommendation would simply be that we just keep doing what we're doing.
The judge won't make, or I shouldn't say he won't. Judges don't make decisions in areas that aren't their wheelhouse. They rely on special fiduciary to give them legal advice. So the judge isn't going to just, because the hospital sells, make some arbitrary judgment or decision. that he doesn't have somebody advising him.
Would they have to get an independent person to make that decision? Because I would think anybody that has a vested interest in it would not be able to.
Except the court doesn't have a vested interest.
No, not the court. I'm just talking about anybody that gives a recommendation. Would it not need to be someone that's independent?
This is the only person who makes that decision.
Yeah, that's me. No one else makes recommendations to the court regarding this plan. Well, so for example, ma'am, if I were to make a recommendation to the court to say, you know what, the new owner of the hospital just gave me $63 million. I want to cut benefits by 10% and just pay everybody out and be done with this plan. I recommend that that's what we do. I'm not going to say that. But if I did, the judge, I would imagine, would say, wow, that's a pretty hefty, that would be a pretty big deal to do that. I would be shocked if he simply gave me a green light and said, yeah, do whatever you want. No, he would most likely call in other independent experts to either corroborate my recommendation or to counter it. And so I hope I'm answering your question, that basically Judge Bell is not going to wake up one morning and say, I don't want to mess with this plan anymore. That's not going to happen. Yes, sir.
Say that in your crystal ball, we did get to $60-something million. Would that put us back, to give us back our 25%?
No, it wouldn't. Because in our projected assets that I'm already counting on, I'm already counting that $63 million. That's the discounted value. I'm already anticipating that we're going to have that money. So we're at 92% funded, including the anticipation of those settlement payments. So we would still be sitting at 92% funded with our already reduced benefits if they wrote me a check for $63 million today. So no, what it would do though, is it would give us the opportunity to take that money, invest it along with our other assets, and potentially earn, anytime we can earn more than our 6% assumed rate of return, that's gravy. We're adding to our funded status and we're increasing the possibility that we could go over 100% funded. But no, even a lump sum today, they would simply be giving me money they were already going to give me that I was already counting on.
The only potential crystal ball thing that could happen there is that just because now we have a larger amount of assets to work with, our earnings could end up higher, coming in quicker than we had anticipated over the course of the years, which that might mean crystal ball wise, 5, 10, or 15 years down the road, we've earned extra earnings than what we thought we did. It's boosted that fundedness over 110. We've been able to maintain it for a short period of time, and then it could literally look and say, hey, maybe we could increase. So if there were ever a crystal ball moment where benefits could be increased to any degree at all, that would help it come about a little quicker.
Right.
But immediately it wouldn't make a difference.
Well, I'm going to ask another dumb question.
It's all right. There's no dumb questions here.
You probably won't answer this.
I'll try.
Okay, I know how much I draw. What is the highest amount that you pay out to an individual? I don't need to know their name or anything. I just don't know the highest.
I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I flat don't know the answer. But what I can tell you, if we go back to... Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'll repeat the question. He was asking, what is the largest monthly amount currently being received by a participant? And I can't tell you that number off the top of my head. I would have to look it up. But what I can tell you, again, here is on this page of the report, it's page 13 of the report that's on the website. There at the top, that's a breakdown of how many folks we have and the average pensions that are being received. And so the largest age group of folks that we have is 65 to 69. Out of our 819 total folks in pay status, we have 232 who are between 65 and 69. They're getting an average pension of just over $17,000 a year. Our largest dollar amount group is our 50 to 59 folks. And because they're 55 to 59, these are early retirement folks who earned the 30 and out. So these are folks that have a lot of years of service in the plan. Their pensions average around just over $18,000 a year. Overall, the average pension paid out of this plan is just over $15,000 a year. I can't tell you the one person who gets the most, but on average, that's where we're at. I'd like to bring Brian up here. This is Brian Parrott. Brian and I, Brian's office is very close to mine. Brian and I have worked together for years on other pension plans, and I've known him to be a very astute financial advisor. We went out, we did an RFP process across the country for asset advisors, and Brian's firm was invited to propose on those services. It helped that I had experience and knew him from working on other plans together. And so for the last 2 or 3 years, Brian's been advising me and helping me to make good investment decisions for the plan. And he offered to come down today and go to the hospital committee meeting, and I said, well, you got to stay and meet the participants too. So I just wanted y'all to meet him, know that I'm not just sitting there with the Wall Street Journal blindly picking stocks.
And I just want to say, he would, I don't want to embarrass him, but Brian comes here out of his own pocket and his own expenses. The plan doesn't pay him $1 to come down.
That's a good point.
You guys, and he's here because he cares about you and wants to do this.
Thank you. Well, and you guys have asked a lot of great questions, but something I just was thinking about sitting over there was, I'd love nothing more than to be here some years saying we're going to raise benefits. I mean, that would be, that's our goal. We're all on the same team. And, my job is to try to get the earnings in here and get them doing as well as they can. This has been a difficult year to do that, unfortunately. And the market's bottomed at the end of September. So Tracy's got to run a report at 9:30 that says, here's what it is on that date. Well, markets move. So we've seen a lot of good things happen in the last 6 weeks. So I'm hopeful that we can finish this year out, the first quarter of your new fiscal year, like they've said a couple times already today, at a higher funded status. So again, we'd love nothing more than to come to you and someday maybe raise those benefits. I'm happy to answer any questions about the market. Mostly what we've been dealing with is inflation. The Federal Reserve has said they're going to be very heavy-handed on trying to get inflation back down. We all see inflation every day. If you go to the grocery store, gosh, even McDonald's, we went to McDonald's this morning. I used to get a meal for like $8. Now it's 12 or 13. So inflation's an issue. The Federal Reserve, why that's important is because the Federal Reserve needs to get that down. The way they do that is by raising interest rates. And that causes problems for assets and investments in general. They're going to raise rates a couple more times, but they're probably going to pause early next year. And that's one reason why the markets have been doing a little bit better. On top of that, this year, we've had the Russia-Ukraine issue, of course, that started on February 24th. That didn't help us out. And then also China and the COVID situation they have. They have a zero COVID policy, so they pretty much locked down, and that creates issues globally for geopolitics and so forth. So a lot of different things, moving parts that we talk about. As Tracy said earlier, we talk constantly in between even our quarterly board meetings with the hospital about strategy, about cutting costs. She said multiple times every day, I think about where can we cut expenses in the plan, even the underlying investment expenses, because every dollar we can save there goes back to you guys. So we're very conscious about that. Again, like I said, we're on the same team. We're doing what we can at the best possible ability for the plan. I'm just one person at my firm. At our company, we've got over 60 individuals. So I'm the face person on the plan, the quarterback, if you will. But there's a lot of people behind me that help out on a daily basis. Okay. Any questions at all about the economy, the markets, or you guys have asked a lot of great questions about the plan. We're at about $98 million right now in investable assets. Through yesterday, I looked it up this morning when I got up this morning. But the other, there's a dollar amount that Tracy keeps referencing. I think it's around $60 million. that's going to come in over time. The hospital makes payments every year, and those are about $4 million, $4.5 million a year that come in from the hospital. But currently, of the investable dollar amount that we have now, it fluctuates, right, day to day, but it's roughly right around $98 million as of this morning. Okay. What else? Oh my! That's like asking what my favorite kid, who my favorite kid is.
Can I add one
Yeah,
thought
go
to
ahead.
that before you answer her
Yeah.
question? Maybe it'll get you off the hook from having to answer it. When you see the monthly asset reports that I post on the website, I don't have a favorite investment, but I do have a favorite number I like to see. I like to see our current investable assets in 9 figures. I like to see us over $100 million. So when you see those monthly reports come in and you see us fluctuating, if we're over $100 million, we're doing very well. And I calculate that again based on knowing what settlement payments we have coming in, benefit payments that we're paying out. We pay out over $1 million a month in benefit payments. And so in order to stay floating at $100 million, we do get money from the settlement payments, but I want our investment income to make up the rest of that money that's being paid out, and I want us to stay above $100 million. So when you see those monthly reports, that's the number I'm looking for. And I call him whenever it's not what I want it to be.
She does do that. She has my cell phone number, so she does call.
So Brian, I'll just rephrase what Tracy's pretty much already answered, and look, we're not asking for any guarantee you can do it. Not even asking for a crystal ball, because those are amazing, but, it's the old joke, so you're saying this is possibly one day doable to get it back up over 110.
I would like to think so. What we have to manage, though, is in addition to trying to get the best possible return out of it, we have to manage the risk profile properly, too. So we never want to go to a position where we're taking too much risk to try to get us there. So we've got to manage that appropriately. But, I'm hopeful that someday we could do that. We're going to have to, the markets move, but we've got several decades to kind of get us working in that direction. But there is always a risk-return trade-off in the portfolio that I have to balance in order to do that. From the investment side, she asked what my favorite one was. Well, the roughly $100 million is well diversified in stocks, bonds. We've always got some money market balances. I always would like to have some money market balances in there to pay the monthly pension payouts so that I'm not forced to sell anything to do that. So when the markets are down, I don't want to have to sell an asset that I like to make that monthly pension payment. So we've got a couple months there that we can kind of weather through. We think the market kind of grinds higher through the end of the year. But on the favorite side, right now, we've got some small cap. So when you think about stocks, U.S. stock market, there's large companies, middle-sized companies, and small companies. They call those large cap, mid cap, and small cap capitalization. We really like small cap as we kind of come out of this and a potential recession. Small caps generally perform better, and they have recently. There's another thing, too. Currency factors into that. The dollar's been very strong relative to other international currencies, and small cap generally benefits from that. That hurts some of the bigger U.S. companies, like the Apples and the Coca-Colas, because they rely heavily on revenue outside of the U.S. So if they sell a Coke in Italy, they've got to repatriate those dollars back here, and there's a trade-off for that. So small companies are, I think, attractive now on a valuation basis. We also have some great diversifiers in the plan that we've kind of inherited but have continued to hold. One of those is timber funds. So a lot of land or timber investments here in the Southeast. And those assets were actually positive over the last 12 months, where almost everything else was down. Kicks out good cash flow. So how we get return is we own an asset and it goes up in value, right? But there's also in cash flow, income that we can generate in the plan to help as well. And those are great income generators. We're more U.S.-centric right now in the plan, so we own more U.S. assets than international assets, which I like, and we've been that way actually for over a decade at the firm I'm at. So that's been helpful as well. The fixed income side, the bonds, we've been underweight bonds up until recently. We're starting to add to that as interest rates have risen. So we try to be very opportunistic in the plan. I love buying stocks in the plan when the markets are down, because we're going to better valuation. And I love trimming them when they're at a high valuation. So we try to be opportunistic in how we put the money to work. Okay. So that, I don't know if that answers your question, but those are some of the things. Yeah, there's a lot of different levers and moving parts in the plan to get it to the point where we can have it properly diversified to get the return that we need without taking too much risk. That's our goal.
Well, here did my little pep talk, and we all in our careers talked about realistic goals, and what we love to see you and Tracy and Mark, Troy shoot for is we were told when the trouble started that, the numbers were getting ready to be kind of weird. And a lot of y'all are going to remember this. We were told, your retirement may get down in the 80s, the 80%, 85 to 88%. We didn't like that, but we were like, well, maybe, and I do not need to speak for everybody, I'm really pleased. But I remember thinking, well, I guess we could live with that, but then you get to 75%, and that's what was the gut punch. That's when we all said, no, wait a god dang minute, so if y'all could just get us back up in the 80s. I'm just saying, that would be something.
Yeah, I like hearing the history. That's why I enjoy just sitting here listening to the questions you guys ask, because it's good for me to hear the history of what we've been through, or what you guys have been through, because we've come in, like Tracy said, kind of at the tail end here to try to help you out.
Yeah.
Listen, you talking about before the plan being funded?
Oh.
Because they told
I can't give you wait. All right, hold on, my answer. I can't remember a date or anything. I just remember when I said the troubles, when we all started.
Well, and quite honestly, when the troubles first started, I came in, like Brian said, at the tail end. When the troubles first started, no, but what I want to tell you is, it may have only needed to be an 80% cut, but it didn't happen, and so the higher benefits continued to be paid out, and the longer that happened, the deeper the cut I had to recommend in order to get us back into balance. And so, right, but so, right. But what I'm saying is, it may, at some point, it may have only been an 80% cut that was needed, but it didn't happen, and so then the hole just kept getting deeper and deeper. That then finally, when I took over, I had to say to Judge Bell, we've got to do something, and we've got to do it now, because we're taking on water and we're sinking.
If memory serves me right, there was at one point, under one projection, that this was only 29% funded. Is that?
That's true, and yet that was, I know what you're talking about. That was an accounting number, though, and it didn't account for future assets, and it wasn't a long-term projection. Right. That was basically if we did absolutely nothing and had no settlement payment. So when the other things were factored in, that was the more realistic number that we got to. Yes, ma'am. When I took over and when we cut those benefits in May of 18, the valuation at 10/1/18 was at 99%.
No, she's saying prior to the cut. Prior.
I'm sorry, okay, then I've misunderstood your question. Say it again. Oh, so before the cut, we were at 65% funded, approximately. It was about 65%. And so that's why with the 25%, reducing the benefits to 75% and eliminating the 13 checks, that got us up to 99. No, ma'am.
We don't own any of that. Or FTX, any of those, yeah. In
settlement payments or all told? they started making the settlement payments, actually, I think back in, no, it was before that because they went into an escrow account. So I think they started making, Robin, do you remember? Was it? Oh, well, so when the settlement was first crafted, the hospital started making the settlement payments into an escrow fund, and I think that would have been in 15 or 16, because because when everything was finalized and the court approved the settlement and everything went through, that escrow fund was released to us to be invested, and it was a little over $8 million. So that tells me they made maybe 2 years worth of payments into the escrow fund, and then that money came to us, and now the settlement payments come directly to us.
So being at that lower rate that we all got a 25% cut, became what percentage?
99% after the cut. It went from 65 to 99.
So it's 65. Just making the cut, which had nothing to do with the money they were putting in.
Correct.
To bring it back up.
Correct. We made those decisions on the assumption that the settlement was going to go through, that we were going to get the escrow, and that we were going to get future settlement payments. And that we made the adjustment assuming and knowing all of that. Correct.
Yeah, had somehow it all would have fallen through, we'd have been in a world of hurt.
Yes, ma'am. We meet with the hospital committee every quarter. So we meet with Jessica and with Robin. Tiffany Murdoch sat in on our meeting this morning. Jason McNeil. Well, so let me explain. So that's who's on the hospital committee, and we meet with them as a courtesy. It's folks at the hospital who run the hospital and who run HR. And we meet with them as a courtesy so that we can keep them informed, because we have 329 plan participants who are still working at the hospital. And they come to Robin with questions, and they come to Jessica with questions. But the reality is, they don't pass me in the hallway, they pass Robin in the hallway. And so as a courtesy, we meet with the hospital, we keep them informed, they keep us informed. We learned this morning about the latest on the hospital sale, and that the RFP has been posted and that bids will be entertained, with a decision hopefully.
We can ask those questions.
Yeah, we can ask those questions and we don't know.
We gotta know. What's that?
That's what we learned, that some person that came to the hospital years ago sent the mail to the correct.
Well, but it's nice just to be able to know, because these are still hospital employees, and as a courtesy, we meet and we keep each other informed. I like knowing what's going on at the hospital. I don't like being blindsided any more than any of you do. Nothing bothers me more than when I get an email or a text with a newspaper article that just broke about a story I had no idea about, and everybody's worried about it, and I didn't even know it was happening. So I like being informed, and I like being able to keep y'all informed as much as I can. And the hospital appreciates that too. They want to know what's going on with the fund, so that if somebody comes to Robin in a panic, she's got an answer for them. And the sooner we can quell rumors that are unfounded, the easier it is for us to get true and accurate information to you as best we can. Yes, ma'am. Right. So I'm going to repeat your question for the camera. So the question was, do employees come to the committee meeting and meet with us as well? And the answer is no. This meeting was strictly with the hospital folks. In the past, we used to do 2 meetings. In years past, when we've come here, we would stay at the hospital and meet with anybody who wanted to meet with us, just like we are here. Past few years, we haven't done that. We've just had 1 meeting, and folks are welcome to come. But because we also record it and put it on the website, we kind of feel like 1 meeting is enough. You can come join us here, or you can watch it later. But no, for the committee meeting, it's just the hospital leadership team.
So we keep coming to the meetings, that y'all have this
Sarah, and why we're here, it's just so if there's any questions and things. And the same thing, I apologize because my voice is a little bit noisy. But we want to make sure that we're getting the communication to them. I mean, my number one question is, for instance, are there any questions or anything that they're having that we need to make sure that you guys can show though, like when we have things from the hospital, we say, hey, would you mind putting this on the website? Because we realize that's where you guys are getting the communication. We want to make sure.
Well, so to answer your question, the truth is I wouldn't mind if you did. There's nothing that we're talking about that isn't shared with you. There were 6 chairs in the conference room that we met in this morning. And if I open it up, we're going to have to do a room like this every time. And the truth is we do a room like this. Right, but the truth is we meet with them and then we come straight here and meet with y'all.
We tell you the
And-
same thing we tell them.
Right, and that meeting lasted about 30 minutes, whereas this meeting can go on indefinitely. I'll sit here and answer questions all afternoon if you want to keep asking them. But for a meeting that involves the CFO and the CEO of the hospital, we try to keep that brief for them. We try to give them the information that we think they need. They give us the information they think we need. It's the same information I just gave you. It's the exact same information. Because there are 329 employees that still work there. And it helps us, quite honestly. That's why I like to keep the hospital informed, because we could not do what we do without Robin. I couldn't do it. I flat couldn't do it. I need her, and it helps me to run this plan better if the hospital and I have a reciprocating respect and good relationship to keep this plan running.
Oh, good. 2.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Now I can tell you what doesn't happen at those meetings is there's never been a time where the hospital has said, here's what we want you to do, Tracy. They don't do that. They don't have the jurisdiction to do that. This is simply a reciprocating information to keep a good rapport with folks that I honestly still need in order to properly run this plan.
This gentleman had a question first.
Yes, sir. If they want us to, certainly. If I were coming in and buying a hospital system, I would simply want to know, what do I need to do about this old legacy pension plan? Oh, I need $63 million. Okay, well, take care of that. I can't imagine the new owners maybe wanting that kind of information. If they do, I'm happy to provide it for the exact same reason. We absolutely need to maintain our connections with Robin. She at Troy worked together very closely to administer benefits properly, and so I imagine some relationship will always continue. One of the things that we're doing currently is we're going for anybody who's not in pay status. We are pulling their records one by one, and we are going back through their employment history. We are calculating their benefit to the penny, and we're getting any information we might need from Robin to calculate that benefit and finalize it so that we can reduce our reliance on her going forward. Again, I'm not going to live forever. Somebody's going to take over what I do at some point. Robin's going to retire someday, and somebody's going to take over what she does. So we're trying to get as many ducks in a row as we can to have this plan operating as smoothly as we can. And the hospital, we have a reciprocating relationship, and it's helpful, I think, to both of us. Correct.
Right.
Correct, but we don't know exactly, and for everybody. What happens in a defined benefit plan is benefits get estimated, and then when someone actually goes to retire, that's when typically records are pulled to say, because, and at a hospital, you all know, people come, they go, they come back, they leave again. And a lot of, it's, calculations get complicated. And so a lot of times those benefits are just estimated for purposes of this valuation. But when it comes time to actually get paid, you want to know down to the penny how much you need to get. And so those are the calculations that we're doing now so that we don't have to do them later.
What if somebody only had, like you had mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
they had only been 2 years vested?
Mhm.
That would be what I vested. They only get 2 years of benefit. That would be very,
Small check.
are they aware that
Are they
kind
what?
of a check? Are they aware that's gonna be such a little amount of check? Because the way the retirement plan was always explained to us was, it doesn't matter what you put in, it had nothing to do what you, it has to do with how long you were there and what you're making. So, the benefit may stop after those 2 years, does the wages that they made in those 2 years, 8 years ago stop, or what are we?
No, it stops. It stops.
Wages and their years.
Correct.
So they actually, that would be pretty reasonable at that point to see what they would pay.
Correct. But that's what I want to do. For those 30-somethings that are in the plan today, I want to calculate what their benefit's going to be today as opposed to waiting until 30 years from now when Robin's retired and I'm retired and nobody knows where those records are. And so we're trying to do that to make things run more efficiently.
But to answer your question,
You could go on a computer. I don't know about any of y'all. I can do that like regular, and you can figure your amount.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but that's an option that's selected at the time of retirement.
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead. Currently, my understanding, Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, he asked what is the status of the sale? And you want to answer that or you?
Currently, right now, they have now launched the RFP process. And that is posted on, I apologize, my voice. That is now.
You want to come up?
Sure, that might help a little bit.
Yeah, this way or on the recording.
Hi, for those of you I haven't met before, my name is Jessica Lewis, and some of you I know, because I got to work with you in the last few years, but I have HR and all of the people division, and so just so you know, we realize that we're here to help support because you guys were employees of the hospital system for so many years, and that's Robin's function, and my function is to make sure anything that Tracy needs to support you all or Troy. That's what we're here for. We're here for our employees and to make sure those things get done. And I know many of you have been involved in throughout this process with the RFP. So the most recent update, and it's on the Jackson County website, the RFP has now been posted, which basically...
What is that? What does that stand for?
What that stands for is request for bids. And what that is with the RFP is that now has set up, and the Board of Supervisors put different minimum things just for anybody to be able to put into a bid because we want to make sure that we have the right partner for the long term for Singing River Health System, right? And just like Tracy was telling you, the number one thing in there in that whole RFP is that they must fund the pension plan because it's a number one commitment. So, but just to let you know, so with the RFP process, right now it's out for bid. It'll be out for bid for the next 3 months. They're projecting that about in March, they will then have the bids in. And the Board of Supervisors of Jackson County, because they're the ones who make the decision, their plan is to hopefully to make that decision in April. So, but if you want to read the actual RFP, you can go out there as well. And then also on your main homepage, we've put all the different links and the different information out there, and you can click on there. But if you go to the Jackson County, you can actually read the bid that if any hospital is interested in coming in and being considered, because I know as they came and spoke to some of the groups at the previous meeting, we want to make sure that we have, the right partner for the long term for Jackson County and the Gulf Coast. But you can see those different things out there. So right now, then the Jackson County Board of Supervisors will make that decision. Their projection, they're telling us, is at about in April, and then we'll know from there where to go.
I have a question.
Sure.
Who gets the profit if you get more than liabilities that are owed on the hospital? Where does that excess money go? Back to the county? The county owns the hospital.
The county owns the hospital.
Okay, so what y'all are saying, it was all of our understanding, is that the hospital sold, some of the money from the sales will pay off to retirement. So what you're saying is, it's going to be whoever buys the hospital will just either continue to make the payments, or they, basically whoever buys it, this is going to be totally separate, they have to agree to continue that. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
in order to even buy the hospital, that is part of the thing. They have to fund the pension plan.
So if there's excess amount selling the hospital,
Yes, ma'am.
that could be adequately, you see what I'm trying to say, to fund the pensions?
That is just the money, any of the money from the sale of the hospital is with the Board of Supervisors of Jackson County.
Essentially, we are.
They already said that. They said any extra money goes into the general fund.
They just didn't make it clear that the sale of the hospital
They pay the
and
pension
the
plan.
pension would have to be.
When the court
You
made
see,
the
all of
settlement,
our
they
standards
did all that stuff right there. Now, he just said.
Correct.
The obligation would have to be taken care of. How nice. And somebody else buys it.
Yes, ma'am. So that will be.
If they renege on their obligation,
Well, the gentleman back
They
here
cannot.
just made a point, and he's exactly right. Once the settlement was reached, the business is over.
Yes.
There's nothing more to talk about with the hospital or the pension plan. So whatever sales happen now, whatever incomes happen, you can all wish and hope and think that they should do something else with it, but it's not an issue anymore. The settlement was reached, the settlement has terms. Whoever inherits the hospital has to fulfill those terms. How they fulfill them really is up to them. There's different ways, there's different ways they can go about fulfilling it. But the fact is, it's the settlement that now has to be.
And that's why the hospital is pushing so hard for this settlement to eliminate them for any future pay.
So any profits, anything like that, we can sit here all day long, we can talk about what they ought to do with them or what we
no,
don't
what I'm
do.
saying
That's why they
is to
did not want to
satisfy
settle
that
the
debt.
case.
It was just, I guess, an understanding
Get
of the
mad, they
majority of
gotta go.
people I talked to, that the proceeds of the sale of the hospital would be part of the obligation of the pension plan, because the hospital essentially is having to pay.
Yeah. So here's the only possible way that could possibly work. The only possible way that could work is the way that an incoming hospital purchasing in a purchase agreement could say, we're going to, and I'm just making up numbers, we're going to give you $500 million for the hospital, but we're going to add $63 million to it so that you can pay off the pension plan. In other words, they could make that a term of the sale.
So basically, the sale of the hospital does not show the pension plan as a liability?
No, yes.
Yes. Yes, but you're asking
It's
questions.
separately-
You're asking
it's gonna be
questions that
separately satisfied.
you're trying to hypotheticals and things here. In reality,
Well, basically, it's just like,
well,
we call it, you know, 'cause
but you told me
things
that
happen.
people said.
No, many people that we talk to, their understanding of selling the hospital is that the amount of money would be put back in the pension.
That they don't understand.
Where was it ever said?
Well,
I
that I
miss a
couldn't
meeting.
tell.
When
Rumors
I
hit
miss a
the
meeting.
street, rumors hit the street, and I can't tell you where they come from. But if that's,
You see, that's nothing to do with y'all. But I'm
if that's what they
saying,
said,
how
they're,
is that?
just a minute.
I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting officially here. We're happy to sit around and answer questions, but I'm going to go ahead and cut the video and audio feed for Tim.